How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Truth Defender podcast. We are coming to you from the greatest country in the world, the great state of Texas, deep in the heart of the Lone Star State, Dallas, Texas, more specifically. If you guys are catching us on YouTube and you aren't already a subscriber, please consider hitting that subscribe button for us, as well as turning on that bell icon and giving us a thumbs up. That'll really work wonders for us with the algorithms and such. If you guys are on the go and you want to catch us, you can find us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, as well as iHeartRadio, and now Amazon Music as well. We'll have the links to all our social media down below. That'll be linked through Linktree, so that you guys can access all of that stuff as well. If you guys love what we do here on the show and you're feeling generous, consider sharing the show with a friend, family member, colleague, or whatever. Maybe not a colleague because we don't want to get you in trouble. I know a lot of people kind of get upset when you kind of bring stuff up at work, so that wouldn't be good. If you guys have any questions or comments for myself or our guests or topic recommendations, you can shoot us an email at thetruthDefender1776 at gmail.com. We've been kind of missing in action for the last couple months. I know the first month that we were off, we were taking a break from all the craziness. And as I was getting ready to come back on and do shows again, I got sick. My wife was in Dubai for a couple of weeks. And when she came back, she had tested positive for COVID, which was kind of a weird whole kind of few days because she tested negative when she was still out there, before she got to the airport, and then she got here and then she popped. So that was kind of a weird thing. She was positive for a couple of days. I tested negative throughout the entire time she had it. But I was sick as a dog. I don't know what that was. I was like, I couldn't get out of bed, and it was just kind of a weird thing. So we finally got over that. Everybody else in our house is finally getting over that as well because they caught whatever I had. So that was fun. We had a full house. So we finally got over that, and now we're finally kind of jumping back into the groove of things. Thank God. So we'll be pumping out shows again. We had to cancel everybody that we had lined up, so that kind of ruined stuff because we had been trying to get a lot of these people on for like the longest time. Like I'm talking like months and months, and then they finally agreed, and then I was like, you know what, I can't do it. So that sucked. But today we shut up the bat signal, and we have Jason McLean on to discuss with us of all things the Ghislaine Maxwell and rkelly decisions that just came down last week, I believe. So without further ado, Mr. Jason McLean, how you doing, sir?
So far so good, Paul. I'm glad to see you're feeling better.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It was kind of rough. I don't know what was going on. I do know that I did not pop for COVID, which was great, but I felt like I was dying for
Yeah,
like a
well,
week
there
or
are
so.
still other things out there other than COVID.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. It was rough. I don't know what was going on, but that was pretty rough. Yeah, if you can kind of give everybody a rundown of where they can catch you in your work, we'd
Yeah.
really appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm every week I'm on Texas Front Porch. That's TEX' Front Porch. I'm with I co-host with Tex, but then on that channel I also have Jason McLean Questions Everything, which is a panel discussion about some of the weird things in life. Then we have Siru Papers, SIRU Papers, where it's definitely cryptids and 40 and other 40 and phenomena, but from a Christian perspective. And we do ask some other questions as well. I do have my own channels. Siru Papers is its own channel as well. In fact, I'm going to be doing something this afternoon on it for just a little bit. Again, asking some spicier questions than what you'll necessarily find on Texas Front Porch. And we just launched Choopy Rules. It's a comic strip, and it's voiced. There are some that are going to be voiced over very poorly by myself, and then others are just standalone comics. So we just launched with 4 episodes. We'll be doing more. The second episode's ready to roll. So the second full episode is ready to roll. We launched with 1 full episode and 3 single panels. So yeah, we're going to be doing that. It's about a chupacabra who hangs out at Miko Duel's Mexican Cantina and Sushi Bar. Hilarity will ensue, I assure you.
Sounds
And
definitely
you can
sounds
find that
interesting.
on TikTok and YouTube as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have all the links to the social media as well as Texas Front Porch and Serial Papers as well for everybody. They want to stop on in and check that out. Um, Yeah, so I really appreciate your time today. I know everybody's kind of relaxing for the 4th of July weekend.
Hmm.
I know I am. I
Yeah.
started off, like I said, I've been off of work already for like I don't know how long, and I'll be off for another week or so. But
Nice.
so we're kind of rolling nice and easy right now for the 4th of July. So everybody out there, you guys are getting ready for the weekend. Make sure you no drinking driving, please, and make sure you guys take care when you're out there popping them fireworks.
Yeah.
I, it's been a while since I've actually bought fireworks and actually popped them on my own. We usually just kind of like go out and watch shows and stuff, but
Right.
for everybody else that really enjoys that, I know we're gonna be, especially out here where I'm at right now. It's gonna be fireworks everywhere, like on the lake and all kinds of stuff. So
Oh yeah.
that should be fun for everybody. Make sure you guys pop a few as well. So that should be fun for everybody. But yeah, so I wanted to jump into these rulings here. So obviously,
Hmm.
Ghislaine Maxwell went down for 20 years.
Yeah.
Whether she makes it the full 20 years is another question. R. Kelly as well got
Yeah.
30 years in prison for sexually exploiting children as well, underage minors,
Yes.
boys and girls, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Now, Ghislaine Maxwell obviously is, I don't know if she's maybe the more high profile. Maybe she's a little bit more high profile because of the nature of the people that they were selling children to.
Hmm.
Obviously, R. Kelly was doing what he was doing, and it was extremely terrible as well. But I don't think, or not
It
that
was
we
for
know.
him. Yeah. It's.
Yeah, it was for him, but
Hmm.
Ghislaine Maxwell, that little black book is still floating around out there. I've never seen anybody been charged with
Hmm.
sex crimes of minors and them being the only ones and not
Yeah.
the people they were selling to. Obviously, there's a lot of very important people in that book on those lists.
Oh yeah.
Um, and I kind of made a joke about whether she makes it the full 20 years in prison because of the nature of the people that are in that book. She might
Oh yeah.
not. Um, but what do you think? Like, I guess who do you think is on that list? And do you think they were? I mean, obviously they were covered up, but did she? I guess maybe flip on a few people. Maybe she should have been. She should have got a lot more years in jail. But what do you kind of think about the whole ruling at first?
Okay, so there's sort of two things, right? The first one is sort of the obvious. Everyone's like, "Oh, well, why'd R. Kelly get 30 and Ghislaine Maxwell got 20?" First things first, it doesn't matter. Women, across the board, women always get lighter sentences for the same crimes that men commit. Period. Straight up. End of story. Like everyone's, oh no, no, no. Women always get lighter sentences, so that's not overly surprising.
Right.
Two, everyone sort of pretends that Ghislaine wasn't actually participating. She was just sort of like aiding and abetting. She was trafficking, but she wasn't the one actually performing the acts. This is also a lie. But that's sort of what they got her on, was the trafficking of the kids.
Right.
So a lot of people see it as less, you know, disgusting than what Kelly was doing. Again, I think this is wrong. The problem, though, when discussing all of this is all of the normal arguments about Ghislaine have to go out the window, because the thing about the entire setup is that Epstein was, it's easy to say CIA, but I think it's more complicated than that. I think it was I think um it may have been the entire Five Eyes, right? Which is but it was definitely an intelligence operation. The
Right.
CIA was involved. What definitely she was a lot she was the CIA was definitely involved, probably Mossad as well, and a few others. Like this was probably more than just a one intelligence agency shindig.
Right.
But we know at least the CIA was involved, definitely. And that's the problem with the whole conversations, is that Epstein was a CIA asset or an intelligence asset. That's probably a better way of saying it. He was an intelligence asset. Ghislaine Maxwell was his handler,
Right.
straight up. I mean, that's who she is, and that's the thing we don't that everyone misses in all this math, right? She is his handler in this whole thing. Yes, she's aiding and abetting, she's doing the trafficking, and yes, we've spoken with I'll see if I can get you Mr. Steele's information. He actually had a relationship with her in
Hmm.
the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, and he has some wild stories. But yeah, she, he didn't know about the kid stuff early on. Like he just didn't know about all that. But the simple fact of the matter is, this was an intelligence operation. That's all it was. Epstein was the center of it, but
Right.
she was the handler. That's if you ever want to know who the CIA agent is, it's always the person just beside the main person, right? That's who the handler is. So
Right.
the problem with all of this math is we're like, well, who's on the list? Who's what? It doesn't matter. They already have
Hmm.
that information, right?
Right.
The FBI, CIA, they already have it because they were working for them,
Right.
right? The whole thing is smoke and mirrors. I don't want to be the guy who's like, I don't think Epstein is still alive, and that was a body double. Would I be surprised to find out that was the case? Honestly, no. Do I think that's what happened? No. I think it's just easier to kill him, right?
Right.
Ghislaine, on the other hand, that because she's the handler. Uh, yeah, I think there's probably a few more options on the table for her, but I wouldn't be surprised if it turns out that Mission Impossible gets one thing right, which is if you get caught, we're going to deny all knowledge, right? It's not that they're not manipulating things behind the scenes anyway, but it's just, look, you go do your 20 years, we'll put you in a nice prison. It'll look bad for a little bit, but we'll get you someplace nice and comfy, and you're going to do your time. Maybe we'll get you out early, kind of a thing.
Yeah, it's and when we speak of prisons and such, so they're like the main prison that she's hoping she gets sent to is FCI Danbury, which is in
Yeah.
uh, Connecticut, which is like not even a prison. I mean, there's no bars around the entire building. It's just
Hmm.
like a nice little building, and there's people that go in there and like in and out, and they're like off for the weekends and all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
They get to sew, and they have dogs that go in there every week, and they have therapy and all kinds of crazy stuff that they're like high profile. I guess this is more of like a federal kind of institution where for people who break federal laws,
Yep.
that's where they go. So you're not looking at like the mass murderers or like the crazy people like
No.
that. You know, these
Yeah.
people are, I guess, more civilized crimes, I guess you would say. But
Yeah. White collar
uh,
crimes and stuff like
yeah,
that. And again, it does go back to prove this is not really the death sentence that everyone's acting like. Oh, she's going to go to prison. She's not going to prison. What's the what was the Office Space? Federal pounds you in the blank
yeah,
prison. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
it's like, no, you're going to white collar prison. No, this is federal pound you in the blank prison. Yeah, she's not going there. Yeah, she's going to a nice white collar prison. Now, again, does that mean that she's long for the world? Probably not.
Was she on
Um,
suicide watch like the
yeah,
last few weeks and stuff?
yeah, she's
Yeah.
been on suicide watch, and it's like,
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
this feels familiar somehow.
Yeah, it does feel very familiar. It's
Well,
weird. So it's like so you already spoke on the point of that I kind of wanted to go out to is that there was no way that this kind of operation was going on. It was international,
yeah.
obviously. People from all over the world were movie stars, freaking people in the governments, not just here in the U.S. but all over the world.
Oh yeah.
Kings, princes, queens. I'm sure movie stars, freaking celebrities all over the world. There's no way that you're moving that many people around the world without some kind of agency knowing, or several agencies knowing. um, and that, I guess, the way that she was actually found and eventually arrested was kind of sealed that up for me because she was living large
Yeah.
in New Hampshire in a giant house. It was worth like $1 million house. It was like $1 million house. She was living
Mhm.
up there like for months while everybody was looking for her all over the world. She was here in New Hampshire,
Yeah.
and
Why would she go anywhere else, really?
and they finally found her there. Um, I think so. It says Ghislaine Maxwell was arrested at a $1 million luxury 4-bedroom New Hampshire house that was bought last year. This was written in
Mhm.
2020, so 2019. Um, and it said that she was arrested on charges connected to Epstein's case and all that good stuff. But like she was hiding right under everybody's noses, or what a lot of people would think was under everybody's noses. But I have no. I guess I'm absolutely positive that people knew where she was.
Oh, that's
Like
not
the
even a
FBI,
question.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then they just like because it was just. I remember when I heard that she was arrested, and I was just like, she was where in New Hampshire, and like this giant house. It was like a giant freaking gated community that was
Hmm.
like in the hills, like you couldn't see it, and it was like blocked
Yeah.
off and all kinds of crazy shit. And it was it was like unbelievable. I was like, what do you mean she was? I was expecting them to find her like overseas somewhere hiding in like another
Right. In some
country.
spider hole, or it's like, where is she? She's in Afghanistan under an assumed alias, living in some hut somewhere. No. Well, so okay, so going back to somebody's like, well, what sealed it for you was where she was hiding and how no one could find her until basically really what happened is her attorneys turned her in.
Sure,
I mean, that's really what happened. But my thing is, we know for a fact the intelligence agencies were involved because there were CIA owned planes at Epstein's place,
sure,
and that there numerous local law enforcement groups had tried to arrest Epstein. Everyone knew what was going on. Like, this is the most disturbing case or thing about the Epstein case in general is, and I use this one a lot because I try to, I don't believe necessarily in these grand conspiracies where there's like 13 reptilian people in a room deciding all things that happen every day, right? I don't buy that kind of stuff. But
sure,
I think, because I think the truth of the matter is stuff like Pizzagate, it's easier for people to believe that there's James Bond stuff going on because the truth of the matter is it's public. This is all going on. And the thing is, the government is actively stopping people from intervening. I'm not
sure.
saying that there isn't some twisted, like the guy who came out, I think it was last year, year before last, it was Out of the Shadows or something. And he was, talking about, yeah, all of that's true. Like, all that's true. And if you notice how often the government kept popping up, like,
Hmm.
it's like the same guy who, this, oh, I just forgot his name. Lead singer for The Doors, Jim Morrison.
Jim Morrison was his dad
Yeah,
like CIA or something, or
his dad,
he was a
his
Navy
dad.
captain, something like
No,
that.
Admiral. He was the
Admiral. I'm sorry.
admiral in charge of the Gulf of Tonkin incident,
Right.
and you're
Yeah.
like, hold up, like it's like, how is the guy who's literally involved in the Gulf of Tonkin, his kid ends up becoming the leader of the countercultural psychedelic movement? What, that seems a little odd. And the thing
Yeah.
is, these connections keep popping up, like Disney and the CIA. The
Hmm.
CIA is who helped pave way for Disney to get Disney, the property for Disneyland and Disney World. Like,
Right.
there was a lot going on there. So it goes back to, there's been this connection. The real problem is a lot of this stuff's out in the open and no one talks about it. It was John McCain's own widow after he'd passed. She, and all this sort of broke with Epstein. She said very publicly, everyone knew, but everyone was afraid to do something about it because of how well connected he was. Like, there's no question that he was an intelligence asset. And again, it goes back to, my problem is, I, the problem is a lot of this, the conspiracy theories are usually more overly embellished to look ridiculous, but the truth of them are always accurate, right? There
Right.
is, Pizzagate was the distraction. Epstein was the reality. And you think he was the only one? You think
Mhm.
there's only Jeffrey Epstein? No. Once it became public, he became the fall guy, period, in the story. There's others. Yeah, by the way, uh Penn State,
Yeah.
right?
Joe Patino.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of people have said that's what he was actually doing. That's why Penn State was allowing this guy to keep doing what he was doing, was because he was providing kids for the really high rolling alumni to give, and the donations, and when they bring, special guests in, that, that's, and I happen to know for a fact, because again, this I have to stay very vague on. But that's happening here in Dallas. That's happening in Austin. I've met several of the survivors, and they will tell you, yes, these are big name people They run multinational corporations. They run these mega churches. They run, it's Hollywood. It's government. It's all of it, and it's state and local governments too. It's not just the CIA, NSA. It's your local sheriff sometimes. Now the thing
Yeah.
is, the local smaller people, they get arrested pretty easily.
Yeah.
But if you're flying a CIA Learjet, you're probably going to be a little harder to catch.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny that you mentioned Jim Morrison and all the work that his dad was doing and stuff. But if anybody wants to know kind of how that whole dynamic works
Mhm.
about like CIA handlers and stuff, we actually did an interview with John Podash, who wrote the book "Drugs as Weapons Against Us,"
Oh, nice.
and he that was I think like episode 12. That was pretty early on, but he um, that book discussed things like Tupac and how he wasn't really like an actual gangster
Hmm.
when he was growing up. He actually went to Juilliard and like put on this like whole persona to pretend that he was a
Hmm.
gangster rapper and all this stuff. And
Yep.
he talks about like very famous rock stars that were controlled by the CIA and they had like handlers and
Hmm.
how they got the Beatles into doing psychedelics and all kinds of crazy stuff. So it was like a whole plan. But that his book I highly recommend. But if you guys want to skip the book and just kind of see what he was actually talking about, you can watch our episode on that. That's episode 12 with John Podash. That was a really good interview. I've been following his work for years and years and years before I actually spoke with him. He has a couple good books on that, and he's actually in the process of writing a new one. So
Excellent.
that's extremely good stuff there because that actually
Mhm.
speaks to how that to Jim Morrison specifically, but everybody else that's like celebrities and like rock stars
Mhm.
and movie stars and how they get
Yeah.
controlled and stuff like that. So that was a great one. But I actually want to read the indictment that they got Ghislaine Maxwell on
Oh,
because
cool. Yeah, yeah.
this kind of struck me as odd. Pay attention to the time frame of how and when they got her. So the indictment reads in part from at least in or about 1994 up to and including at least in or about 97. So from 94 to 97 is when they
Hmm.
got her for. Maxwell assisted, which I don't think they'd stopped in 97.
No, they didn't.
Maxwell assisted, facilitated, and contributed to Jeffrey Epstein's abuse of minor girls by, among other things, helping Epstein to recruit, groom, and ultimately abuse victims known to Maxwell and Epstein to be under the age of 18. The victims were as young as 14, which I don't think that stopped there either.
No.
Years old when they were groomed and abused by Maxwell and Epstein, both of whom knew that certain victims were in fact under the age of 18, which I think that's true as well. Um, but from 94 to 97, and do you think they, in their head, they developed some kind of moral clarity to say, we're not like we're drawing the line at 14, like no, 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 no lower than 14. That's completely
Yeah.
ridiculous. I mean, it's and especially not from 94 to
Hmm.
97, and that was it. Like that was the extent of her involvement.
Hmm.
94 97, that's like the biggest thing I took away from that was ridiculous.
Well, it is ridiculous, and this is what. So part of this is from a legal perspective, they can only get you for they can prove, and
Right.
that's one aspect of it. And I'll be fair, or I'll try and be a little generous here. I don't know if it's being fair, but I'll be generous and say that's probably the best information that they had that that they could use, that the CIA hadn't just completely covered up and taken care of, right? So
Right.
okay, fair enough. Let's say that's the case. But there's a bigger point here, which is oftentimes in I'm not trying to get off on the whole UFO UAP thing, but the thing is, a lot of people like when they look at how the government's been releasing the UAP reports and all that, they're like, "Why aren't they talking about Roswell? Why aren't they talking about this? Why aren't they talking about that?" It's like, guys, did you notice how precise and in a very narrow window that this group is actually supposed to look at?
Right.
It's See, that's the problem. Is people don't understand. It's like, hold on, they put these very strict borders around the topic. And so it allows them to sort of to the normies and to those who are maybe a little, who are just, led or informed only by the lamestream media to say, oh, look at them. They're doing their best. Look at what they're doing. It's like, no, what they've done is they've created a legal fiction about this barrier that only allows them to talk about this and it omits all the rest of it. Right. It's the same thing with Ghislaine. It's like, well, here, we're going to get her for this time frame and these things. And that's what, and they'll claim that that's the evidence they have. No, it's not. But that's the evidence they're allowed to get out. That's what they're allowed to get her on. And so it looks like they're doing something without actually doing the actual work. And again, this is something that needs to be said every day, and and probably as often as we can. She was convicted of aiding and abetting a sexual traffic, the sexual traffic, a sexual traffic ring to no one. They were providing these girls in some statements, boys as well, to nobody.
Yeah.
We're the Johns in this now. But guess what? It's easy to point to Ghislaine Maxwell, but what about the NXIVM cult? Did we see any of the Johns go down for that? I haven't seen it.
That was sad. I remember watching
Allison Mack on
Allison Mack, Smallville. I remember watching that show when I was younger, like all the time, and then all of a sudden I see her in the news is doing all this crazy shit, and I was like, "What the?
What just happened here?" Yeah. Oh, trust me, I was doing Vagabond. I was still doing. Well, I mean, I'm still doing Vagabond Nerds, but like we were like a year old, I think, at that point. It was very early on, and yeah, it's like when that happened, I'm like, well, what's happening?
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? Allison Mack was aiding? Was a child trafficker? Like that's really what she is. She was trafficking children. Now we typically it's like, well, children are prepubescent. I'm like, I'm sorry, if you're under 18, you're a child.
Yeah.
Like that's just, it's like I get it. It's like, okay, if you're really over 14, 15, you're probably not a child, but it's like sometimes you're trafficking minors no matter what you're doing. That's still highly illegal and immoral. More importantly, it's immoral. It's like, how do you get so brainwashed that you're like, yes, let me do this? Well, again, great. We can have a conversation 100 ways about how she fell into this and blah, 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 blah. I still go back to, but the NXIVM cult was providing services to whom? Oh, we don't know that.
Apparently, it was just to the guy who was in charge, but I highly doubt that.
Oh, it's not. See, that's the problem. We know it's not. That was the entire setup. It wasn't just him. So, where are the Johns? Right? This guy was made a millionaire because it's like, where are the Johns? By the way, everyone's kicking and screaming about what's this Weinstein, right? What about the people who aided and abetted him? Meaning Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah.
No one talks about her involvement. See, and that's bringing back to Ghislaine. This always goes back to there's a fall person. There's always the fall guy, and that's the sacrificial lamb, so the rest of the system can continue functioning. That's the point. All she is, she just took a dive.
So reading up on Ghislaine Maxwell and like her family and what they were about,
that gets weird fast, doesn't it?
Her sister is like some big person in tech. She's like super rich. Her dad like ran some crazy corporations in England. He was even like a member of parliament in the 60s and stuff like that. So
let me get into that one real quick, because let me tell you, I went on the deep dive on that one because I read something. I'm like, well, that can't be true. Oh, it's weird. It gets crazier. Like it's whatever you think the craziest story would be, it's crazier. First of all, one of her sisters is a tech security chick here in Dallas. She teaches out of UTD.
Okay.
I was like, and she runs a security firm, like a computer security firm. So their father was a newspaper. I'm putting this in quotation marks, and I'll explain why in a second. But he ran a newspaper or several newspapers during the Cold War.
Right.
Everyone kind of knew that it's like, yeah, the newspaper was out there. But it was a front company for the intelligence agencies. And a lot of people said, like you said, he held a lot of offices, but a lot of people said he was shady and blah, blah, blah. Well, what he was doing was his agency, because no one apparently bought these newspapers, but it was a big paper of record, but no one ever bought it, like the circulation. And everyone's like, This doesn't seem to match up. Well, because it was a front for not just the CIA, but a lot of these others during the Cold War.
Mhm.
That's what they were doing. Home dude, when he died, right? He was buried on a very prestigious hill in Israel. And a lot of people said, I'm sorry. I mean, yeah, he was ethnically Jewish, but he never spent a lot of time in Israel. He didn't like everyone kind of like, how does he get buried here? Like, this is an important cemetery. And a lot of
Mossad.
people have pointed out that it's Mossad. He was Mossad. And which, and again, because I had a chance to interview Mr. Steele. One of the things he flat out said, and is that Ghislaine was trained to do what she did from childhood. So without, you read between the lines, okay, that means she was probably also utilized in this way as a child. She learned how to do it. She learned how to manipulate people because that was her role. That was one of the things that he did. He was basically, one of his services was probably doing this stuff
Mm.
also, right, as part of the intelligence gathering and apparatus, which means she was sexually abused as a child. Like, she just was. And it's part of, like, how do you make these, it's like, how do these people come into existence? Sometimes people are just born bad, absolutely. Other times, though, they're made. And she was made to be this person. And that's why she's the handler. She was made to be this person, to do these things as part of the intelligence apparatus.
It's kind of like Courtney Love, and her entire crazy story about how
Oh yeah.
she was like a prostitute when she was a little kid and all kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Except in Ghislaine Maxwell's case, it appears it wasn't as bad as that. As far as like being a prostitute and
Right. Yeah, she wasn't
doing
on the
drugs and stuff
yeah.
like that. Yeah. So
No, she
it's
was, but she was trained
yeah.
in all, without going into too many gory details, but yeah, she was abused. Again, I can have sympathy for her in that respect, absolutely. But you're an adult, what's right and wrong. But she was raised in a family that is very connected to the intelligence agencies, to this larger network of intelligence operations and dark intelligence operations. And so again, it's not surprising when you see she had a very interesting relationship with the Disney Corporation. You find that out and you're like, again, that can't be, what the heck? And they were doing tr- sco- Disney Cruise Lines was doing these special trips to the island.
Yeah.
What the heck? You're like, okay, something's going on here. And that's the point. There's so much more here that an honest investigation would reveal, and you'd be like, what the heck is going on? That's how it's hidden. It's literally there in the public. It's all obvious. It's just all the people who could do something about it are told not to.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, looking up and I had actually tried to look up articles and stuff because I remember reading articles about Ghislaine Maxwell and Disney and those kinds of things, but doing an extensive search, I actually had to go like on a Tor browser to actually find anything because if you look it
Yeah.
up on Google, a lot of the links that I would click on were like broken links or those
Oh
websites
yeah.
didn't exist anymore, or that article didn't exist anymore. So
Hmm.
it was still like even when I was searching through Tor, it was still like
Yep.
not a whole lot was there, and it's odd, and going back to her dad, so, like, he was found floating naked, like, in the ocean or something, like, when he
Yeah.
died, and doing, like, investigations, like, of financial forensics and stuff like that, like, he owed, like, billions of dollars to several banks. I think it was, like, over 40 banks that he owed money
Yeah.
to, so,
It was
it
it
was
was all
pretty
fake. Yeah.
yeah, so it was like, what the hell is going on? Like, it started off with her dad, like her dad was extremely shady, from the get-go. So it kind of snowballed from there. And
Well, but the
it's
same
weird.
thing happened with Epstein. Like, literally, when they
Yeah.
when they finally did the raid, they're like, okay, well, he's worth like so many millions of dollars. Like, it was Rush Limbaugh who came out and said, this doesn't add up
He
at
was
all.
gifted like $1 million house in New York. And
Yeah. Well, it's
it's
more than
weird.
that. It's like when you look at his staff, like where he had them, how that he in Rush said, no, this guy is like, this does. Everyone's like, well, he's got $500 million. He goes, You don't understand the kind of lifestyle he's living, because Rush was real big into jets, right? He loved planes and all these. Like, you don't understand the kind of way this dude was living.
Hmm.
This is not someone with $500 million. This is someone with access to way more money. He's like, this does not explain what he's doing. We all look at $500 million and think, well, holy cow, think what I could do with $500 million. You're right. You could do a lot with $500 million, but you're not going to be living the way he was living. Those are two very different things. It's the staff. It was like two different pilots that were on call, living on property with whole crews, multiple planes gassed at all times. Right? It's like, no. That's not a $500 million lifestyle. That's a 10, $20 billion lifestyle. Like, that's someone who has that. Again, nothing ever matched up with what we can see from a forensic accounting versus what's going on, because he's doing the same. He was doing the same thing Ghislaine Maxwell's father did. Again, it goes back to why everyone realized he has to be intelligence, was the fact that he owed all this money to all these people. Well, how did he get the money if he was, sure, it's the 60s and 70s, but still, like, that's not possible. It's because he was a front. One of the big things, I mean, people just don't understand because no one ever talks about it, because again, the media is in on this, all of it. AIG, right? I was like, why are we bailing out AIG? And it's like, guys, you do realize that, yes, it's an insurance company, but it's a international insurance company that we use to prop up other countries' funds, their economies.
Right.
Like, AIG is used to support the value of currency in certain nations, and we're the ones backing it. Also, insurance is a really great way to funnel cash from black cash from one person to another person, have it all seem legit. It's money laundering for intelligence operations. Because what happens? Oh, they took out a multi-million-dollar policy on this oil well. Oh, look, there's no oil there. AIG pays out. That's how this works. And so everything seems above board, and the intelligence operations and governments can move, DOD especially, can move black money from their accounts to someone else's accounts using the intermediary, AIG as an intermediary.
Right.
So it's like, that's how all of this actually works. So, and again, we don't think about it that way. We tend to think, well, wouldn't there be an easier way of doing it? Not if you're trying to hide it, right?
Yeah.
The trick about money laundering is it's got to look legal, right? Because again, no one has ultimate control over anything, so you kind of still have to put up at least some song and dance for the
Sure.
rest of the world, and that's what that is. That's why Epstein didn't actually have the money to match his lifestyle. That's why her father didn't have the money to match the lifestyle. Why? Because they were intermediaries. They were, in a lot of ways, doing things to keep someone protected. In Ghislaine Maxwell father's case, it was the intelligence agencies, and in Epstein, though, everything about him was scuzzy, and that's why everyone kept it quiet. But his whole lifestyle was the fact that it was like, oh, he's just a financier who does this other stuff. No, he's an intelligence asset, and what he's doing is gaining power for the CIA, probably Mossad, and a few other agencies. I wouldn't be surprised.
I remember hearing somebody talk about the fact that, like, they were talking about how he makes money and like why he had so much money, and he mentioned he was there was a lot of reports that he was like into investing and all kinds of crazy stuff and making like a shit ton of money. But this person that I heard talking about it, that's the one time,
Mm-hmm.
had said that he had spoken with him and he knew him very well, and that there was no way that was remotely true, because he had no
Mm-hmm.
idea what he was doing. Like, he had no idea how to invest or how to take care of money and all
Mm-hmm.
kinds of crazy stuff, and all these rumors
Yep.
that he was like some kind of big investor and all kinds of stuff. But that wasn't true, because he had absolutely no idea like how to handle money uh to that level, because I mean, like you mentioned, he wasn't just like a millionaire. He had to have been like billionaire, going to different islands and planes, and They even had freaking submarines that they would take to the island and all kinds of crazy stuff. So
Yeah,
it's
this was a again, not even a multi-billion-dollar lifestyle. This is the lifestyle of someone who has tens and to in the tens of billions of dollars. And to your point, it's not just that he was clearly incapable of handling the money. It's that everyone kind of stopped and looked and said, "We can't figure out why he's a billionaire."
and like very important people were giving him money and like houses and
Mhm.
stuff, and like out of nowhere, it's like either you're a really good friend or you have something hanging over somebody's head and they're just trying to shower you with gifts and all kinds of stuff. So
Yeah.
it was definitely weird. But so like I mentioned before we hopped on, the this case is obviously worldwide news. Like everybody's
Mhm.
reacting to it, obviously. But one of like the weirder places that I saw it, someone react to it. So there's like a big UFC fight this weekend tonight as we record this. This today is the 2nd of July. So Israel Adesanya is the middleweight champion currently. And he was actually doing a press conference. I don't know. I think it was this morning before the fight. It was actually yesterday when they were having their, I guess, like weigh-ins or whatever. I don't
Mhm.
know how this topic got brought up, but he started talking about Ghislaine Maxwell. And I have the video, but I think I'm just going to go ahead and read what he said here in the article. And I'll post the article down below for everybody else that wants to read it. This comes from usanews.com. So I don't know what led up to this whole thing, but this was his quote on the whole thing. He said, Ghislaine Maxwell just got put away for 20 years. Um, so this was noted during the weigh-in. So she was supplying kids for all these fucking pedos, right? Where's the list? The outspoken MMA fighter said. So the list of
Mhm.
politicians and actresses and actors that was talked about, does that just get swept under the rug? Do they not get any time for actually effing these kids? The reason, of course, is because the men on the list Adesanya referred to are powerful. That was Maxwell's and Epstein's MO. They were able to control powerful men who were stupid and creepy enough to go to Epstein Island. Now those powerful men are keeping this all bottled up and hoping people will forget. End quote. So that was, like I said, I'm gonna have to go
Yeah.
back and watch like the actual video because I just saw this morning, so I wasn't like sure like how that whole thing started. But I'm gonna have to go back and watch the whole
Yeah.
freaking press conference. Um, but that just goes to that point that you were saying earlier that I've never seen anybody charged with selling children to nobody, and like they're the only ones that got charged. And now they're going to jail, and everybody else that they sold to, like we never hear a peep out of.
Mhm.
Like we don't know who they are, we don't know who's in that book on that list, who they were. But one thing we can know for sure is that they were some very important people because that list is not going to see the light of day,
Not at
if
all.
not like ever, ever, ever. So, um, which is extremely sad because this is all
Mhm.
kind of for naught, right? Because sure, we got rid of Epstein and we got rid of Ghislaine Maxwell, but it's just like they say, like it's going to be the next person off the bench. Someone else is going to step in that place, fill that void, and they're going to continue the work. Maybe not through the channels that they were doing,
Yeah.
but they're going to create their own kind of deal and work with different governments, and it's just going to continue. Like it's not going to stop now. It's we don't know who they are. We do know the people that were providing them, and they've been taken care of. But like, so what? Like that doesn't mean anything now because there's just going to be somebody else that's going to go ahead and step in now.
Yeah. Well, and that's sort of the point we made at the beginning of the episode, right? It's like, you think Epstein was the only one? Like he was just one person on this. And again, it's clear this wasn't even his doing. Like
Yeah,
he was the asset put into place. She was the handler. His job was to be the con man to get the people where they wanted him to, or where he wanted them to be, or to get the information, to get the compromised materials, and also just to provide these things to such a high level people. I mean, it's like the problem is we often try and look at all this in its own, like silo it from everything else. It's like you don't think it's connected to Bohemian Grove, you don't think it's connected to all of these other, satanic ritual stuff. You think honestly that it was just him and just these people and it's just the one thing. No, it's all connected. That's the whole point. And it's even if we think that he was sort of on the cleaner end of this, where maybe he wasn't doing kid sacrifices, I don't buy that at all.
Yeah.
See, a lot of people have made that claim. It's like, no, there's actually better evidence that he was involved in that part of it. Again, it's all connected to these broader, um, to these broader things that everyone knows about, but no one does anything about, because the people who run it are the people who get to say, no, don't look into this.
Yeah. And so uh, it's one of these things that I struggle with a lot, is like knowing that a lot of the atrocities that we see throughout the world, and especially when it comes to children, is probably the biggest atrocity that I've ever
Hmm.
witnessed in my life. And I've been war zones and all kinds of stuff. But when you mess with kids, that's like the lowest form of
Hmm.
any existence, because children are so pure, especially when they're like under 10 years old. Like they don't know what's right and what's wrong. Typically they don't know like the way the world works, and for people to
Yeah.
prey on little kids like that it, just knowing that it happens, and that maybe when you're laying in bed one day and you're thinking about it, at that very moment it's happening to like another kid, and there's nothing you can do about it. um it's
Hmm.
one of the hardest things that we have to struggle with, in this existence. And it upsets me that people that you would think, or that are supposed to be, protecting you, like your governments and like law enforcement, and people like that actually have the power to protect the, large swaths of people. um a lot of these people are in on it as well. They're the
Yeah.
ones that are actually covering up for like these other people that are doing it. And
Hmm.
cops are, we've seen cases of like actual cops like being arrested because they were freaking pulling over cars, and then maybe they were
Hmm.
like freaking sexually assaulting women, or like the kids, or like in
Yep.
jail and stuff like that. And it just like we've spoken about this kind of thing before, that I'm extremely upset, and maybe it's selfish that none of these people will receive any kind of punishment on this earth in this time. Obviously when we all meet our maker, they'll receive it, but I I want to see it done like on this earth. Like I want to see it happening to
Yeah.
people that actually deserve it. Um, and I just know that these governments that are in charge right now are going to get away with it, and they're going to live like long, full lives, and they're going to get a lot of money and be in power for a long
Yeah.
time, and they're never going to see any kind of punishment on this earth, which like it breaks my heart, not only for the kids but like for the families that have to live with it. Kids that go
Hmm.
missing and they never come back, their families have no idea what happens to them.
A
I think
lot.
that
There's
has
a
to
lot of
be
kids that happens to. Yes.
I think that has to be one of the worst things. Like I would much rather know that my son or my daughter or somebody was dead and I actually have a body, than to like never know what
Hmm.
happened to them ever again. Because like you never see
Yeah.
them, there's no dead body, you don't know where they're at, what's going on with them. I would much rather see them buried in the cemetery than to like not know, what's going on. And that's
Hmm.
one of like the harsh realities a lot of parents around the world have to deal with. Like, their kids go missing and they never see them again. They don't know what's happened to them. They have no body, they have no clue. And that upsets me like to the like beyond anything else that I've ever experienced in my life. And
Hmm.
it's rough because I want to see that justice happen on this earth while I'm alive, but I just know that they're gonna get away with it, which
Yeah.
sucks. It's
No, it does, and that's absolutely the case. I mean, it's yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, look, if someone could walk up and say, "Look, here, we'll pay you, and your job is to go take care of these people." Well, I'd do it in a heartbeat.
Mhm. Yep.
I mean, but to your point, we know that the entire broken system. It's not broken. It's designed to work this way. That's the problem. It's not even broken. This is the way it's actually supposed to work.
Right.
And for me, at the end of the day, we look at this, it's really the entire book of Lamentations, right? We see this is nothing new. The powerful, the corrupt have always done this. And the point is, it is going to come to an end in the future. And they do have something to account for. There is someone that they have to look in the eyes and be like, well, yeah, I did these things. That is going to happen. And there's going to be a world where it doesn't happen anymore. For me, it's further evidence of why A, we need a savior, and B, why it's got to happen. When people are like, oh no, we don't need a God to tell us what to do. Yeah, we do, clearly.
because y'all fuck
I'm
everything up without it.
Yeah, it's like look around you and you tell me that we're doing great. You know, it's like even the things that people are like, well, look at the good things that have happened. Yeah, and if you trace it back, there's usually someone who's like, well, the Bible said to do this, so I did this, and I started this organization, and or the morality that allows people to even say that this is wrong comes ultimately from the Bible. You know, a lot of people like, I'm not going to sit here and say that an atheist can't be a moral person. That's not my point. But
Right.
I am going to argue that they're borrowing our morality. The only reason it's like everyone's like, well, I can come to it's like, no, you think it's right because you grew up in the Western culture, and Western culture is predicated on this moral system. So ultimately, all of again, modern science despite the whole argument of it's science versus religion, no, it came up out of the church, because it's there's a reason why Western Christian nations developed the way they did. Ultimately, even the good things are clearly coming from the teachings of God. So,
Yeah.
yeah, at the end of the day, we can't run ourselves. We're incapable of doing it ourselves, because when we do it ourselves, this is what you get. You get Epstein and Maxwell. You get R. Kelly. You give anybody, and also ultimately why I don't believe in centralized power. This is what centralized power can do. That's why you decentralize things. Imagine if there wasn't an FBI, but every state had a chance to look at this stuff,
Right.
and there was something that said, "Hey, hold on, we can do things and say, hey, hold up, this is happening over here. We want it stopped, right? We can investigate." Like, if we could decentralize these things, it would be a lot harder to corrupt everybody. But when you centralize everything, you just have to corrupt a few people,
Right.
right? When you have ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox, and CNN, and MSNBC running all of your news, it becomes real. And the problem is, even if you have OAN and Max and Newsmax and all these other things, that's fine. It's still a handful of people. And it
Yeah.
doesn't and the thing is, they still have to play certain rules to be on cable channels and satellite station, and it's like, you don't have to corrupt everyone, you just have to corrupt the right one. An entire organization is useless.
Yeah. One of the reasons why they paid airports to run freaking CNN for years and years and
Yep.
years, because it's finally they got that over with. But yeah, I mean, it's like hundreds of the world's freaking corporations are run by like 6 or 7 major, like,
Hmm.
I mean, freaking BlackRock is like the biggest one that comes to mind, but there's other ones like,
$13 trillion. Yeah, and again, it's like, yeah, again, this is one of those things. If BlackRock, $13 trillion worth of assets. Now they own a little bit of everybody. That's fine. That's not really that big of a deal. The problem is, it's a governmental organization. They're like, no, no, it's private. It's not private if the government's money is making certain they don't collapse. If the government makes rules that allow them to do what they do, and not you and I. And that's the problem with whether it's Alphabet, which is Google, if it's Facebook, I guess it's Meta now, um, Apple, Amazon, all of these big multinational, massive corporations have what they have because the government has given it to them.
right.
People are like, well, we need to have a strong government to prevent monopolies. Okay, great. Show me one of these monopolies that it didn't get where they are because the government made them the monopoly.
Yeah, there's not too many of those, if at all.
Hmm.
I doubt it, but yeah, it's. I mean, not to. I guess we kind of overshadowed the entire R. Kelly
Hmm.
thing as well, but not to be overshadowed as well. We had R. Kelly as well
Yeah.
get sentenced. Obviously, 30 years in prison. I guess this last Wednesday,
Hmm.
for sexually abusing women and underage girls and boys over the course of decades. So it wasn't
Yep.
just relegated to women. Obviously, he was married to another huge pop star or back in the day, which was Aaliyah. And
Oh, really?
Aaliyah, she was like 17, 16, 17 when they got
Yeah.
together. I think he was like in his 30s already, but
Hmm.
so they got married at that time. I don't know if they waited till she was 18 or not, but I do know that they were together and she was like
Yeah,
16,
she was
17 years
young.
old.
Yeah, it's like now I'd completely forgotten about that until you mentioned. Then she dies,
Yeah.
and she died real young too. It was like what, 19 or 20?
She was like 21, 22 or something like that. She
Yeah,
she died in that freaking plane crash, but um yeah, it was
which is
I mean,
which, by the way, is suspicious as all get out as well. I mean, we don't need to get off on that one, but it's like, yeah. So not to again, not to. I think the problem is with R. Kelly, and the reason it's easy to sort of look at that and just walk away is he was one dude.
yeah.
Right? Now, he was a wealthy dude, there was other people involved, all this is true, but he was just it was for his jollies, and his
Mhm.
jollies alone. The problem the real reason it's easy to look and be like, "Okay, cool, but let's talk about Ghislaine and all the other," is because that's an entire it's a system that is corrupted. It's not just these weren't just two wealthy people just wanting to, with sick perversions. This was an intelligence operation run by our government and providing cover for pedophiles who have positions of power and wealth, and they're protecting them, right? It's like with R. Kelly, it begins and ends with that sleaze bag and people uh within his immediate reign. With the others, it's because it's a spider web of corruption that involves the people whose jobs it is to make certain this stuff doesn't happen, right?
Right.
And that's the big issue, and that's why it's easy to look at, because let's face it, R. Kelly, okay, guess he's gonna get remixed in prison, you know? It's like in that it's like, but we know he's gonna go to federal pound you in the butt prison, right? We know
Yep.
that's where he's going.
Yep.
Where's Ghislaine going? She's going to go to a very nice and posh place where she gets to have weekends off, and there's probably gonna be doilies. Like, she's gonna be living a very comfortable life.
Mhm.
Right? She doesn't have to think about too much. She's just gonna be going and living, basically a retirement home. Um, and then they'll either fake her death and she'll go off and do something else, or she'll, go into hiding, or they'll just kill her while she's there because, better not to have that thing untied, or that loose end, where it is. But
Right.
it's what she represents. Is she represents an entirely corrupt system that we can't seem to really break, because all the people who are supposed to be in charge of breaking that up and ending that are the ones involved.
Yeah.
That's why it's easier to get R. Kelly, arrested and tried and convicted, because he was just a dude. That's all it is.
Yeah, and so this comes from the New York Times. So it says R. Kelly used bribe to marry Aaliyah when she was 15 years old.
Oh wow.
He bribed a government employee in 94 so that he could obtain fake ID for the singer because she believed she was pregnant at the time. And um, it says 94, he was afraid she was pregnant and he believed their nuptials would block her from testifying against him and shield him from the prosecution for having sex with a
Right.
minor.
That would make
So,
sense.
so that's,
Yeah.
I mean, that aside, I mean, she was 15 years old, maybe
Yeah.
14 when they met, and like he had sex with her and whatever. So that alone is just right off the bat. It's just like, what the fuck, bro? Like, whether he bribed anybody after that is that's just added. But I mean, she was 15 years old. I
She was
mean,
15 and then she thought she was pregnant. That means, yeah, I mean, it's like right there. That's statutory rape, period, end of story.
and
Like,
it's
but then he marries her in order to make certain she can't testify against him.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
So
this has been going, like, but again, look at how long it took to get him convicted. Because Aaliyah, that's mid 90s.
yeah, she was nine. It was she was I think it
Well, hold on.
said
When did she die? Because she was
t-
filming the second Matrix when she died.
2001.
Oh,
She died.
2001. Never mind. Okay. Yeah.
So, so I mean, she was 15 in 94.
Right. Exactly.
So yeah, so
Yeah. So
that's
this
yeah.
is the mid. Yeah, it's all happening in the mid 90s. So again, this is all happening in the mid 90s, and this is what, 30 years ago now, almost.
Yeah. So yeah, she was 21 years old when she died. Yeah, it's I mean, So I mean, she obviously wasn't the only one, but like
Right.
there was people testifying in court and stuff against him. It's like this girl was 17 years old. This other girl was like just 18, but she met him when she was like 17, 16 years old. One of them, um, one of the victims said, and I quote, "You made me do things that broke my spirit. I literally wished I would die because of how low you made me feel." Um, and there's other people uh, that said that he
Mhm.
had turned her into a sex slave and all kinds of stuff. And she
Yep.
was like 17 years old
Oh, wow.
when he met her, stuff like that. So, I mean, obviously, when you're a huge star like him at that time, like in the '90s, he was big, obviously, but um, you're traveling to other cities, other
Mhm.
states, like other countries, maybe, and you're meeting all these girls, whatever. And for a lot of people, they that are famous, they don't, especially now, girls they pretend to be older than they are, whatever. But like
Mhm.
if you're actively seeking out these girls that are like underage and stuff, then that's
Well,
a
and that's
whole
what he
nother
was
story.
doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like he was clearly actively seeking these kids out, and there is a like you said, there is a difference in the mentality of someone who's hooking up with a groupie who's 17 but says she's 18 or 19, which we all know happens. Again, is it good? No. Should they be doing that? Of course not. But there's a difference between someone who says, "Okay, hey, she says, she's got a fake ID or whatever, she says she's 18. I'll just believe her because I want to get my rocks off." Versus someone like R. Kelly who's like, "Hey, see that 13-year-old girl over there? Let's brainwash her into becoming a sex slave." Like those are two very different people, right? And again, one of the reasons and this is probably an entire show unto itself, we're really not as a nation overly concerned with uh, punishing sex crimes. Is when you look at some things like the sex offender registry and you realize, hold on, well we have all these people registering. It's like, okay, so he was an 18-year-old and he had sex with his 16-year-old girlfriend. Again, clearly not something I'm going to condone at
Right.
all. And I do think that they should be punished, but I do think that that requires at least a lighter punishment than say the 27-year-old who's raping a 13-year-old. You know, I'm sorry, those are not the same crime. Those are not this. That's not the same intent. That's not the same thing. But we treat them the same. And if you really wanted to do something about this, if you had a situation where it's clearly 27, 13, or 9 or 8, you would castrate them.
Yeah. That's what they do in Alabama now.
Mhm.
Hopefully, I wish it was like that everywhere else, but um,
Yeah.
and that's just that's one of the things that really gets me as well. Like we
Mhm.
obviously we charge other crimes accordingly, and we should,
Mhm.
no one should get a pass or anything. But it baffles me like that sex trafficking of children doesn't get like a bigger play from anybody. Like you never see it on the news, like
Yeah.
nationally. Like you might see like local cases here and there, but there's like I think
Mhm.
it was like 10 million children a year go missing around the world.
Yeah.
Like and like
Oh,
I
it's
think there's
insane.
there's
Mhm.
not all of them are sex trafficking, but there's slave labor and all
Yeah.
stuff like that. But the fact that all these kids go missing every year and like nobody makes a deal about it, yet like we're fighting over like whether we should get fucking electric cars and stuff and like gas and all this crap. But like, hey, like these kids are going missing every year, like millions of them. Nobody says a damn thing about it.
Well, let me say this, and this may be the most controversial thing we've said all episode. Why do you think they didn't want the wall?
Yeah,
I mean, straight up, if this is why they want illegal immigration, because there's yes, are there people who are trying to come and and work illegally but have a better life and send money? Yes, that's all true. But you know what is also equally true? Human trafficking.
and-
And you're right. Not all of them are coming over here to Joe Biden's sleepovers. A lot of them are being used in these illegal grow fields and other drug dens, and they're used as slave labor all the time. It's easy to be like, well, oh, they're, it's like these hotels and no, no, no. Drug cartels are using slave labor in this country. And you know why we don't stop it is because it provides a good amount of cash to congressmen and senators, both above and under the table.
Yeah.
I mean, please understand the all of this stuff, it goes in the hands of the politicians or they'd stop it.
Yeah.
And that's so again, that's why they didn't want the wall because they do want these kids coming here. They don't give a damn about them. They don't give a damn about illegal immigrants. They just want their cash and they're willing to exploit anyone and everyone to get it.
Yeah, when you got people that have no faces or no IDs and you don't know who they are coming into the country and they go missing, like
Mhm.
who are you gonna go after? Like who are you gonna go look for?
Yep.
It's not a big deal. So I
Mhm.
mean, there's like hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants on their way up to the border right now, and there's like hundreds of thousands more that'll come next month. And it's all these people are just nameless, faceless,
Mhm.
and once they get into the country, they disappear. And nobody looks for them. Like they're here illegally. No one's gonna say anything.
Hold on, I gotta look one thing up because there's something. Hold on, because there's a number. Um, there it is. So, on average, right, there's over 500,000 people who go missing every year in,
Yeah.
in the United States.
Mhm.
Those are the number of people who go missing that we know about.
Right.
Those are the people for whom there was someone to say, "Hey, this person's missing." Now, half of those, I've talked to a lot of people who actually have, about half of those are found, or they're identified one way or the other, right? It's not that just 500,000 people go just drop off the face of the earth. The problem is there's a large percentage of the remaining half that's absolutely true. They just vanish and nobody knows what's going on. But the point is, 500,000 people every year that we know of. To your
Right.
point, there's a lot of illegal immigrants who come in nameless, faceless, no ID. And a lot of people are going to come around and say, hey, Mr. Policeman, I'm an illegal immigrant. And my buddy over here, who's also an illegal immigrant, went missing. But also think of the lifestyles like, hey, well, they just went to another town to find work. Right. I mean, it's entirely, it's almost like an entire system designed to make certain people disappear.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I was human trafficking is like the second largest criminal enterprise in the world right
Yeah,
now. So I think it was like
it is.
150 billion dollars.
Hmm.
I think they were saying like 99 of that comes from sexual exploitation. But in 2018, it was 50, almost 52%. It was like 51.5 or 6%
Hmm.
of criminal human trafficking cases in the U.S. were sex trafficking cases involving only children.
Yeah.
So, like, with like, I guess nowadays it's more of like the slave labor, but I mean, I think they were saying like 20 to 30 kids a day are sold
Hmm.
for sex or something like that. So it's, I mean, first off, the people that instigated, like actually got looking for kids to do that, you're a piece of shit off the bat. But the people that actually buy these kids, you're an even bigger piece of shit. All collectively, I mean, I don't think we should waste space and taxpayer money on these kind of people like R. Kelly and freaking Ghislaine Maxwell. I kind of understand because she's part of a larger, kind of net, and I'm sure they want to try to figure
Yeah.
that out as they go.
Oh,
But for like,
they're not figuring
yeah,
that out. That's the problem, right? That's the real problem is they're not, which
yeah,
is again to your point. If we were actually serious about this, like I said, we would find if you were like maybe it's like we do a 2 or 3 strike law where it's like either it's like if it was kids above a certain threshold, you get 1 strike, and then if it happens again, we castrate you or kill you. I'm cool. I'm cool with doing both, right? Um, whichever order is dealers dealers preference, but it's like if we were really serious about it, we'd say if you're trafficking people, that's a death penalty,
yeah.
period, in the story.
It should be, especially when it comes to kids, but especially when it comes to like sexually abusing kids. Like, I
Hmm.
don't line them up on the wall. Like, we could probably save ammo if you just stack them in front of each other, but like I don't
Well, you know, the
I have
guillotine still works.
I have no sympathy for anybody that does
Mm-mm.
anything to do with kids, like in any way, shape, or form. Um, I don't care where you come from, if it was like the first time or it was an accident, you were confused or whatever. I don't
Yeah,
care. Like
I
you're
don't care.
that's it.
Nor should you.
Yeah.
You shouldn't care. You know, I mean, that's the whole point. No, it doesn't matter if you're. There is a point where you're accountable for your actions, and if you are trafficking children, if you're trafficking people in general, no. But if you're trafficking kids, yeah, no, you are better out of the gene pool, and you know, whatever. And I'd be okay. It's like, no, no. It's like I know we have rules about cruel and unusual punishment, so it's like, fine, we'll find something that's not cruel or unusual, but it can be painful, you know. Um, just well, thank you, Texas Jack. Wood chippers, right? Those are things that still work. Just you know, just bricking the wall them, right? Just nice old line, nice big hopper, just push them in, you know, let it do its work. I'm okay.
I don't know. Gas is expensive nowadays. So
I'd pay for it. But here's the thing, an industrial wood chipper, you can run that on electricity.
true.
We
Yeah.
just need where there's a will, there's a way, my friend. Where
I'll
there's a
even
will, there's a way.
I'll even hook up one of those bikes and just pedal the whole time and generate
Yeah,
electricity.
exactly. We lose weight, we
Yeah.
get a good cardio workout, and a bunch of people who need it leave, you know, we get to set up a meeting with God for them.
Yep. It's the best way to go. Instead of we're just over here spending freaking taxpayer money on freaking three hots and a cot and
Oh,
just
and for
waste
Ghislaine Maxwell, it's gonna be
three
three
gourmet.
gourmet deals and a nice fluffy bed and weekends off and bull crap like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
And this is not what it's not that I don't really think it. This is the toned down version of what I'm thinking.
yeah. No, yeah. I mean, we don't pull any punches here. It's always
Oh,
it's
I'm pulling
always
my punches, I assure you.
yeah.
But that's the whole point, right? This is one of those things that should cross all party lines. Republican, Democrat, Independent, even the Green Party should be okay with at least. It's like, can we at least get these people out of the and put them somewhere, right? Let's at least stop the crime. You know, we can debate whether or not we get to castrate or kill them. Fine, but can we at least stop them from doing what they're doing?
Mm,
That should be a bipartisan thing. There should not anyone who has a problem with that should be the people you immediately turn and look at. Where it's like, really, you got a problem with that?
Well, now they have these things where they're I forget what they're called, but they're like minor attracted
Yes.
people or whatever, and they have like flags now, and there's freaking professors in colleges that are like
Hmm.
advocating for them that it's not they're like sick or whatever. Yeah, they are sick, like, but like they're advocating for like us to give them a place in society and like help them out. No, fuck that. Like it
Hmm.
doesn't matter if you think it, you don't act on it. The fact is you're thinking about it. Like, and
Yeah.
maybe one day,
If you're
yeah,
someone who unironically uses the word maps to describe pedophiles, you're the problem.
yeah. So when you're like advocating for them in colleges and stuff, which is
Yes.
obviously people in college are the most impressionable people in all of society, and they believe all kinds of crazy shit. But um,
Hmm.
eh, I just don't understand like any person
Yeah.
that advocates for them in any way, shape, or form. Like, sorry, like
Yeah.
you can catch me outside, right? But it's
Catch
it's
me outside.
like
How about that?
it's it's
That chick is
ridiculous.
the fact that chick is a millionaire
Yeah,
should tell you everything you need to know about our society and why I'm okay with Meteor 2024. You
let's
know,
do it.
just saying.
Let's make it happen.
I'm here for it. Like, nope, I'm good with the zombie apocalypse. I want the zombie apocalypse.
Well, yeah,
It's
we'll even help create it. Shit.
yeah, it's like, nah, I'll push the button. I get it. But it goes back to again, this is why we need a savior. This is why we need God. We are incapable of doing these things on our own because letting it up to our own devices, we do this. this was a Christian nation at its founding. Again, doesn't mean everyone was a Christian, but there were basic principles everyone sort of agreed to. And here we are, a mere, two centuries later, and we're like, yeah, 8-year-olds should be surgically mutilated and given chemicals that will leave them essentially castrated and probably kill them very, very soon and cause all
Yeah.
kinds of mental and emotional problems along the way. Yeah, let's do that. Like, there's we got here. Some I think it was Andrew Clavin, but someone else may have said it before him. Um, it happened slowly, then all at once.
Yeah.
And I got into an argument. I know we're way past the hour. I'll end on this.
No, no, no. We're good.
I got into an argument with someone online back when I bothered to get into arguments with someone online. Um, about when they passed or when they just declared uh gay marriage a thing. I said you do realize the next letter coming on the LGBTQ thing is P
It's P.
for pedophile. Like, that's where it's going. And they're like, "How can you say that?" It didn't take long, did it? Didn't
Yeah.
take long to get here.
And that's the kind of the thing that we were talking about as well. I had spoken about this a while back with other people that I knew, like in my personal life, and I have a lot of
Mhm.
family members that are gay and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and I don't have anything against them or anything like that, but I knew that gay marriage was going to be used as a tool to push all kinds of crazy things, like just like this, just like you said. I knew this day was going to come, that
Yeah.
pedophile letter was going to be added, or they were going to try fighting for it to be added, and they were going to try to normalize it. I knew that was going to happen one day.
Mhm.
um and it was just, they just put it on the back of the whole gay marriage movement and stuff like that, and I just knew that this day was gonna come one day. And I even remember speaking to somebody about that, and I even said, I was like, these bills and this push to to have gay marriage legal, like, they're gonna want to add more to it. As soon as it's legal, they're gonna push for something else and something else, something else. It's gonna go down the line. And just like you said, it's finally here. Like, now they have like their own flags, and they have people advocating for them to be added and stuff like that. And I even
Mhm.
found a great page on Instagram for anybody who wants to follow. So it's called Gays Against Groomers,
Mhm.
and
Yes.
they actually
Mhm.
are trying to fight back on, like, trying to push, like, trans initiatives and like teachings in schools, and they're trying to fight back against all these
Yep.
drag shows and stuff, like when they have kids there and stuff like that. And they're just like, "Well, why would you want to do that to kids? Like, whatever you do on your own is your business, but like, why are we doing this to like third and fourth graders? Like,
Yeah.
what's the point?" So that's like another great page for people to follow if they want more information on that. But yeah, it came quick. I mean,
Mhm.
from the acceptance of gay marriage, making it legal, all the way to where we are now, like, it was
Not
like,
it was not
eh,
long.
not long enough. Yeah, it
Mhm.
was ridiculous, and I kind of knew that this was going to happen eventually, and this was like the main thing that I was speaking with other people about. And
Mhm.
sure enough, we're here now. And it what bothers me more is that people are accepting, like, they're actually willing to give it a
Yes.
chance, and they're actually thinking about it in like a like like they want to like try to understand like what's happening with these people, and they're like, oh, well, maybe we should give them a shot. Like, you know what, I'll give you a shot, but not the shot that you
Yeah,
want.
it'll be the
It's
four. Well, what it's probably up to $1 now. It used to be 40 cents. Okay, so you want to go real deep on this one? Unfortunately, I do have a hard break at 1:30.
all right, all right,
Um,
good.
but and I've talked about this on my channel. The real push, the reason that this is all being pushed, isn't because they actually care about minor attracted peoples or trans kids or any of that bull crap. They're not. They don't care about that. What they want is transhumanism.
Yeah,
That's the push. All of this is to undermine even the very concept of what a human being is. Now, if you want to get into what caused people to accept, because like you said, uh, we all saw it coming. It's like, as soon as once the gay marriage thing happened, It's like there's nothing really to stop pedophiles, right? Because the arguments are the same, right? But the first crack, the first thing that allowed the slope to develop was when we moved the idea of marriage out from creating a family to support the next generation of human beings into it's about loving one another. Once we got beyond the purpose and functionality of a thing, and it got all about the touchy feely squishy stuff,
Yeah.
well then guess what? If it's just about love, it's like, well, it's just about loving each other. Okay, well, but if you define love as touchy feely squishy feelings and that's all, then yeah, why should gay marriage not be illegal? By the way, if it's just about love and appreciating, then why not an adult and a child? Why not a brother and a sister? Why
Yeah.
not any of these things? Why not a dude and his dog? Why not a woman and a goat? Like, why? There, once you've moved things beyond once you've removed purpose, right,
Right.
from these things, you've done that. But again, the ultimate reason was not because these people actually, or the people advocating on screen and and in print, yes, they care because they were told to care. The people who told them to care don't care
Right.
about any. What they care about is creating not is the creation of transhumanism and the acceptance of people saying, sure, I'll jack with my DNA to become non-human. Sure, I'll remove healthy, viable tissue, not I got into a car wreck, I don't have a leg anymore. Sure, let's put a cybernetic enhancement on it, or I have a disease. Let's give you a new kidney or a new heart. That's not what this is about. It's a hey, I'm gonna just remove my legs and put cybernetic ones on because I want to run and jump faster. It's I want to have my eyes removed so I can see in the dark. That's what they're talking about. It's I want to copy my consciousness, which they're not going to be able to do. Just it'll be your brain, maybe your memories, yes, maybe your brain patterns, yes, but it won't be you. You're
Right.
going to go face to face with God, but there's going to be a computer program with your memories and brain patterns that'll live on in the net forever. It's transhumanism. That's what they want. That's why they're pushing for this. Because the ultimate goal is that they don't like humanity. It is to create it's to recreate the Nephilim, and that's what they're trying to do, ultimately.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of the hardest things that I came to realize is that marriage is solely for the purpose of
Mhm.
freaking procreating, and that was it. Like when I kind of found that out, I was just like, well, I was kind of like in the same camp. Like, you're gonna get married when you're in love and you love this person and this and that, but it's like all marriage is just for you to have more
Mhm.
kids, and that's
'Cause
pretty
well,
much it.
yeah, it's to raise and create the next generation of human beings.
Yeah.
By the way, why do you think they work so hard on making certain that women think that that motherhood is a bad thing or that it's not valuable? There's literally nothing more valuable than a mother to
Right.
raise to create new life and help raise that child in a
Right.
stable relationship. That's the idea. Because you know what? When you've got a stable relationship, a mother and a father raising kids, the chances of that kid becoming a criminal, committing suicide, uh, all on just you pick any negative metric you want, it goes down. It's not perfect. We're fallen human beings. And yes, there's a ton of crap going on in the world you can't protect kids from ultimately. But if you want something that would change the world tomorrow, put every kid in a home with with a loving mother and a loving father, and most of these problems go away overnight.
Yeah.
Now, there will still be there's still gonna be kids who commit suicide, sadly. There's still gonna be kids who do often commit crime, who get into these things because the world is a broken and evil place. But you know what's really not helping that are broken families, creating broken, even more broken children to put out into the world.
Yeah. I'll definitely attest to that. I mean, I lost my mom when I was like 13 years old, so not having her in the home was like a big thing. But I was lucky enough to that I had my grandmother, who was
Mhm.
actually my godmother as well. When my mom died, I was with her, so I didn't. I guess I kind of didn't miss a step, but yeah, I could definitely attest to that as well. It's when you have your parents in the home, I made it a serious point of mine that I'll at least be here in my son's life until he's 18. That's like
Yeah,
that's
after
kind of
that, it's
like
like you kick him out and you're like, "Fly!"
yeah,
Well, oh,
it's
but actually, the thing is, your story actually reinforces the first point because your mother didn't walk out on you. She died,
true. Yeah.
sadly. Just mine did as well. And the thing is, when someone when they've done the studies, and they actually look specifically at the kids who were raised in a household where like the father was a police officer, a firefighter, or a soldier and died, or the mother died of a disease or a car wreck. The numbers, the statistics remain the same
Right.
because and this is because we are moral creatures, and you know that that parent would still be there with you if something hadn't intervened. There isn't the degradation, but when you have a deliberately broken family, that's where the chaos comes. And I think it's one of those things where it's more than just, we're moral creatures. But so yeah, it's like a single mother, because the father died, actually has the same level of those kids going on to do good things with their life as someone who's in an intact family, because the morality is different. When the
Right.
dad goes off, like, well, I need a pack of smokes, and goes off and finds five other broads to knock up, it's a very different moral and situational, you know, or it's a very different moral situation to grow up in, and particularly if your mom was out there banging everything with at least two legs, right? And you got she's got three kids, each one a different color of the rainbow. It's like, okay, that's a very different moral situation to grow up in. Now, again, I'm not saying that people can't turn their lives around. They can. Absolutely. I don't think it's ever too late to change your life and do something with, and change that story. You can always change the narrative. But if we're talking about broad societal issues, if we could fix the if we can fix marriage, and if we just fix that one thing, we'll fix a lot of these other things as well. And by the way, men with families are way less likely to put up with a lot of this crap.
Yeah.
But the problem is we've spent the last 100 years destroying that that moral impetus.
Right.
We've spent the last 100 years destroying that, and here we are.
Here we are indeed. Well,
Mhm.
yeah. So I mean, what as we kind of wind down here now, I guess for one, can you let everybody know where they can find you again? And two, um, I guess closing statements for everybody out there when it comes to, I guess, like the family dynamic,
Mhm.
advice and how they can try and keep their family intact. Because it's only going to benefit the rest of us as well. So,
Exactly. Hey, families, it's what we need, right? That's what we really need. But yeah, if you want to find me, again, Texas Front Porch, TEX apostrophe S Front Porch, or Siru Papers, SIRU Papers, again, also on Yahoo. But again, sirupapers.com has links to basically everything except for Choopy right now. So yeah, you can find me at sirupapers.com, SIRUpapers.com.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, we'll have everything linked down below for everybody as well. And links to the podcast as well as the websites, as well as the social media as well. Um, you are also on TikTok, right? So, that's
Yeah, Choopy Rules is on TikTok right now. I
okay.
I may create another profile eventually down the line, but right now it's Choopy Rules on TikTok. So again, Choopy Rules, um, on YouTube as well if you don't have TikTok. So
Right. Yeah, we'll have everything listed down below in the show notes for everybody. But yeah, guys, if you guys are catching us on YouTube again, you aren't already a subscriber, which a lot of people aren't, but they like to stop in and check out the episodes. Please
mhm.
consider hitting that subscribe button for us as well, as hitting the bell icon so you guys don't miss an episode in the future. Give us a thumbs up as well. And like I mentioned before, if you guys like what we do here on the show, please consider sharing with a friend, family, and everybody else that you work with. Maybe if you feel comfortable with them. I don't know that we're too, I guess, work friendly with a lot of the topics that we discuss.
Yeah,
But
yep.
if you feel comfortable with that, you can go ahead and do that as well. If you don't feel like having a job anymore, go ahead. Um, but
Well, at this
uh,
point, what's the point of having a job anymore? Money doesn't buy anything.
yeah, it's true. But yeah, if you guys have any questions for myself or a guest, as well as guest or topic recommendations, you can shoot us an email at thetruthDefender1776@gmail.com. Trying to catch us on the go. I know a lot of people are on the move this weekend, 4th of July weekend. You guys can catch us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, as well as iHeartRadio and Amazon Music as well. Yeah, Mr. McLean, I really appreciate the time. I know we're cutting into your weekend, so we won't take
Oh,
up too
it's
much
okay.
more of your time. But we really
You know I
appreciate you
love you,
jumping on.
man.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Likewise. And yeah, for everybody else, you guys stay safe out there. I mean, it's gonna be a long weekend for me. I know a lot of people aren't gonna be working on Monday. That's the 4th of July. Be careful with the drinking and driving. Be careful with the fireworks. You guys enjoy your family. Enjoy what little left of freedom that we have still going on right now. Um, Try not to, I guess, fill up them gas tanks too much because that shit's expensive.
Yeah, it is.
But yeah, we'll have everything linked down in the show notes below
Mhm.
for everybody that wants to take a look at everybody's work. And yeah, everybody stay safe out there, stay blessed, and most of all, stay frosty.
Perfect.